a military.com op-ed calling for a return to the draft. And this publication is generally a pretty good temperature for the pulse of the military and military rhetoric. We will note that it's an opinion piece, but it sufficed to scare me to death as the mother of a teenage boy. I'm not speaking against military service. I want to make that crystal clear. I am speaking against wasting young lives in useless wars. I respect the military, and I don't want anyone at risk needlessly. I hope you can appreciate that distinction. Now, the author notes that enrollment is down. This is something we've been warned about as of late. The Army says that it will be 15,000 recruits short of its 65,000 recruit target. The Navy says it will be 10,000 recruits short of its 38,000 recruit target. The Air Force says it will be 3,000 recruits short of its 27,000 recruit target. The Marine Corps is the only one that says we will hit our recruitment target, but it's been a struggle to do so. Now, according to the Pentagon data, only 9% of young people said that they would consider military service as their career. That's down from 13%. I mean, think of it. That's not even 1 in 10. Go ahead.
I was going to say, think about back in like the 40s and 50s and stuff. It was like a man's honor to go in and serve in the military. Like people were like, I'm going to go into the military as a career. Yes. People were excited to do it. And now that all of these wars are happening and we're being the policemen of the world, people are losing faith in the military. And they have never had to draft during non-war times. I mean, the times that they drafted was major offenses, right? Offensives. It wasn't during peacetime.
No, of course.
We're still in peacetime, but...
Yeah, exactly. It was Korea. It was right after the Cuban Missile Crisis and into the Vietnam War, yes. Right? And so, he makes the point in this piece that because of the last two massive wars that we've had, they've been unsuccessful. These two massive 20-year wars that we've had have been unsuccessful.
Well,
and
think about
that's why these numbers are down.
Right. And think about the way the military is presented. Now, I've just this year read David Goggins' book, who was a Navy SEAL and an Army Ranger.
No, well, he went through Army Ranger training, but didn't actually get past it.
Okay. And I also have read Chelsea Manning's book. Now, a lot of times these recruitment efforts, especially on these memoirs, are about like, hey, you're down on your luck. You don't come from a wealthy family. You don't have any other options. Join the military and we'll make something out of you. And otherwise you would be nothing. And the reason they recruited David Goggins to do this job was to go into Black communities and show them like, hey, you're kind of screwed anyway. Come to the military. Right. And so it's now presented to people who have not really a lot of options in life, instead of being presented as an opportunity for pride and advancement.
Yeah, I was gonna say, even in my day and age, like when I was a kid, they had like the GI Bill, and you could go in and you could make a career and then come out and get college credits. Like there was things about it that even I was convinced in looking into it, because I was like, well, that sounds kind of cool that I could go in, get some college credits, come out and use that money and everything to do it. Like they don't have that anymore. Now they just show you are like the commercials are people with weapons and technology and all this other stuff.
Right.
Well, it is like a modern form of slavery, if you think about it, right? You're basically taking these people, and a draft would adversely affect poorer populations in the United States, and people of wealth and means can get out of it. That's exactly what happens. And so it would adversely affect poor and lower middle class individuals, and it would push them into a form of like modern slavery. Right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. And, what is the selling point after all of these wars? Even as the piece points out, he says that after 2 decades of war, both of which ended unsuccessfully, there's, low recruitment now. Well, unsuccessful wars, if you read what the military calls the AAR, or the After Action Review, you wouldn't sign up for this either if you looked through those wars. In this opinion piece, he says that the low opinion of the military is really politicians' faults because they sort of use it as a pawn in their political play. Or maybe it's the needless dying and the fact that people don't want to put their life at risk for something that they think is, a needless war. You can't really put a good PR spin on that.
And tell us what successful would have been. Like what would successful look like?
I know. Unsuccessful. Like we would Because, I mean, we did exactly what we set out to do, which was totally destabilize the Middle East. So what is this? What is a successful war in Iraq?
Us owning it, still having our bases there, like successfully.
Yeah, we already do.
What does that look like?
I mean, I guess in Afghanistan, I don't know. We pilfer
everything.
We pilfer all their minerals and resources. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is amazing. It is amazing to think about in those terms, right?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Now, the draft is presented as a cost saver because apparently it costs $15,000 to recruit each new member, putting a total on this of about $2 billion annually, I suppose. Now, it's worth noting, though, not only, are they asking people to sign up for, to sign on to endless wars, but also the suicide rate is really high for U.S. veterans. Look at this research showing that 16.8 veterans die by suicide every day. That is an insane number. 16.8 veterans taking their own life every day. Many of them report being unable to live with what they saw when they were deployed, or what they themselves did when they were asked to do, or what they saw being done to other human beings. Many of them simply can't reconcile having lost friends and colleagues to these pointless wars. Now, interestingly enough, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say really quick, I heard a guy that put it a great way. He said he fought harder when he got home for benefits and help with what happened to him over there than he fought in the whole war.
Yeah.
The battle was harder, he said.
Well,
and that just kind of puts it in perspective.
Now, I want to sort of put a highlighter here on this idea that so many veterans have mental health disorder. I would argue this is not a disorder. This is a normal human reaction to having seen horrors, right? I think that we pretend that veterans who've seen these terrible things are now diseased because they can't handle it. I feel like that's more a sign of health, that they can't handle it unless you're a psychopath and you can easily compartmentalize that stuff. No one's meant to handle it. And I think this all brings up the uncomfortable question about the war that we're facing right now. Do people who support dragging on the war in Ukraine only support it because they're risking other people's sons and not our own? Would you feel differently if it were your family or your son at risk? I think it's also worth noting that even Ukrainians do not want to be drafted into this war any more than you might want your family members drafted. Take a look at this. This week, the SBU said it uncovered an underground draft dodging service in Ukraine that helps people avoid military service for about $6,000 apiece. Ukraine doesn't have a draft anymore. They have a full-on mobilization. They have an order for all men of military age to report for duty. Or rather report for death, given how many of them are losing their lives trying to take back territory that does not want to be a part of Ukraine.
So today we got new numbers on the war in Ukraine. And you wonder why they're trying to get away from this mobilization. The new numbers that came out today show that about 400,000 Ukrainians have been killed. Let me repeat that. 400,000 have been killed. And upwards of 2 million have been wounded. Either permanently wounded, loss of limb, mentally incapacitated, doesn't matter. 400,000 dead.